while there are some tensions, my managers back then reassured us that we'll be fine. And at the time, I honestly didn't think it would affect me personally, And all my messages were gone, except for one, which was a notice saying that my role had been eliminated. I must have done something wrong, especially I got laid off twice, and I wasn't given enough things. And the specific interview questions depend on the company and role, but they usually cover... I was born in Seoul, South Korea, and moved to Indonesia when I was around 8 years old. I remember I spent about 10 years there and then moved to US for college. I studied physics and math at Columbia University, which is in New York, and then did my PhD in physics at Yale University. After completing my PhD, I decided to transition to industry. And since then, I worked as a machine learning scientist at Amazon and a data scientist at Walgreens, spending about a year in each company. There's actually two questions behind this. So the first question would be, why transition to industry after spending so much time in academia? And in fact, this is actually one of the most common questions I got from people around me. And they would ask me, why did I become a professor? And this is actually a very long story, but long story short, one of the reasons was that I wanted to solve more real-world problems where my work can have a more tangible and immediate impact in real life. As for the second question, it'll be that the short answer is that Amazon gave me the chance to work in a machine learning project that aligns with my interests and expertise. And the team was also very friendly and nice, and the pay was not bad. It's pretty decent for a first job. Also, I have to be honest, it was the only offer that I got before my student visa expired. Every day, millions of people use Amazon.com to purchase various products. Among them, probably at least tens of thousands of bad actors and fraudsters try to use things like stolen account or engage in other fraudulent activities. And at Amazon, I worked at developing better predictive models to identify and catch these bad actors. So I joined Amazon around March 2022, and things were pretty fine and smooth. Until I remember it was around November or December of that same year when I heard about an internal leak regarding potential layoffs. While there are some tensions, my managers back then reassured us that we'll be fine. And at the time, I honestly didn't think it would affect me personally. Well, boy, was I wrong. It was January 2023, and I remember the date. It was January 18th of that day because I'll never forget that day. And the night before, I had a really bad nightmare that I couldn't log into Kind, which is Amazon's internal app for communication. And because my role had been eliminated. Then I woke up and it wasn't a dream. When I checked the app, I couldn't log in, just as I dreamed the night before, and I still can clearly remember how I felt. Because back then my mind started to panic and go all over the place. I opened my email and all my messages were gone, except for one, which was a notice saying that my role had been eliminated. And looking back, I was too shocked to feel anything because I saw it happen to others in social media, but I never imagined it would actually happen to me back then. And it felt like a breakup, except this time, I didn't even get to say goodbye to my managers or my colleagues properly. As an international student on a work visa, I only had 60 days to find another job to stay in the US. I didn't even have time to feel sad or angry or any kind of negative emotions because I knew that I had to act immediately. I remember the day I got the notice, I already started thinking about what to do next, where to apply, who to reach out, and so on. And next day, I posted on LinkedIn about my layoff. And actually, it turned out that I received a lot of attention and likes, and tens of thousands of people saw my post with hundreds of likes. And luckily, one of the directors at another company called Walgreens saw my post and reached out to me. And I had a verbal offer within less than 3 weeks, followed by a formal offer shortly after. I did have some interviews at other places, but I chose to accept this offer, mainly due to this time constraint. And I still remember that the day I signed the actual offer, I cried a little from relief. The biggest reason I joined Walgreens was that it was the first company to reach out with an offer, and that was really important to me because I was under a very tight time constraint. They also offered a pretty good pay and a lot of opportunities to improve and automate their healthcare systems using AI, which I'm very interested in. In the US, doctors often write prescriptions that are sent to drugstores like CVS or Walgreens. But these prescriptions can be very difficult to read, and it is very slow and costly for pharmacists to manually read each one of them. At Walgreens, I worked on automating this process using AI to automatically extract all relevant information from these prescription images. Similar to Amazon, there were some signs that the AI team I was part of could be affected. A few months before the layoffs, a new CEO came on board, and there was an announcement about the need to cut costs, which is basically a corporate speak for layoffs. In late January, I got the notice, it was 2024, I got the notice that a large chunk of the AI team will be laid off, and I was one of them. If my first layoff was a completely unexpected punch in the gut, the second felt more like a slow motion jab, except that it really picked the spot that hurts the most, and it still hurts a little bit. And it was definitely a little less shocking compared to the first time because I already experienced it before. But it still felt very stressful. And because I still had that ticking time bomb due to my visa status, and also the stress of having to prepare and go through those grueling interviews. On top of that, I felt quite betrayed and even upset at first that even this new job, for which I had to relocate all the way from San Diego to Chicago, with this job that could lay me off as well. Like my first layoff, I reached out to people around me and posted on LinkedIn. However, I didn't have the same luck this time. And I was also a little bit burned out from the layoffs and these high pressure interviews. And so when the 60 days grace period ended, I had to leave the US, and since then, have been staying in South Korea with my family. Thankfully, I still hold an H-1B visa, and so I can return to US as long as I secure a job offer. I'm actually still remotely looking for my next role, primarily based in the US, and it's been almost a year since the layoff announcement. I've probably applied to at least a couple hundred positions so far over the past year. And honestly, at this point, I kind of stopped keeping track of the number of interviews or applications. I actually heard of people apply for more than thousands of jobs within even just a span of a few months. But as for me, I've been more intentional about where to apply and what I really look for in my next role. And it's basically, I've been having a lot of thought because it's a very delicate balance. Because on the one hand, you want to kind of be realistic about the current job market, which I'll talk about soon, but it's really bad. And on the other hand, you also want to figure out what you want and not just be satisfied with whatever you get. And as for the actual interviews, I did quite a few over the last year. I mean, I think half the time I was traveling and visiting family. So I didn't spend the whole year interviewing, but I definitely spent more than half the time interviewing, job searching and interviewing. And so far I've probably had dozens of phone screens, at least more than 15 or something like that. And also more than 5 virtual on-site interviews. And for each on-site, I'll typically talk to 4 to 5 team members, each one grilling me on different skill sets. And the specific interview questions depend on the company and role, but they usually cover things like coding, machine learning, both fundamental and applied, case study, or probability statistics, as well as behavior questions that revolve around my previous experiences. And of course, there's a lot of details that would be better save for a future video. Looking back at the interviews I had, I'll say a lot of them mainly came from referrals or recruiters who reached out from the company. But I noticed that referrals only worked when it came from those who are willing to vouch for me strongly or personally knew the hiring manager. And as for what didn't work that well for me, I'll say it was like, of course, like online applications on company websites. But I think for this, I have mixed opinions because while the success rate was generally low, I still did get a few interview chances that I wouldn't have otherwise. And because it's much easier option than relying on networking or referrals, which are of course good ideal options, but a lot of times can be time consuming because you need to reach out to people, there's no guarantee that they might come back to you, and it's also in that sense beyond your immediate control. I also work with third-party agencies occasionally, but I mean I didn't work with them a lot. But from my experiences, their success rates were generally the lowest for me. And so personally, I prefer the hybrid approach of networking to get referrals, as well as like online applications to kind of give your shot at places that you're interested in for a sweet spot between quality and quantity of applications. The mileage may vary depending on the individual, but at least in the industry I applied for, and for most entry-level or non-senior roles, from my experiences, the job market is really tough now. A lot of people are laid off and looking for jobs like me, and a lot of companies have started to hire fewer and fewer people. I think it all started going downhill since 2022. I remember that's when Amazon had its first hiring freeze with rising interest rates, followed by layoffs across the entire industry. And companies are definitely more selective with hiring now, and even getting an interview invite is really difficult with a huge pool of candidates. While, of course, I cannot say that I aced all of my interviews, looking back, even the ones I thought I did well didn't result in an offer. And I actually got a verbal offer from one company last year, but they ended up putting the role on hold. And I think this is all indicative of the tough job market where companies are very, very hesitant to hire unless the candidate literally fits every single criteria they describe. And even then, they may ghost you or just choose to not hire you for multiple reasons that are beyond your control. And it really seems like an employer's job market right now. Saying that the whole process has been tough would be an understatement. It felt like, and to some extent it still feels like, a roller coaster ride, except that you have no idea where it's going. After getting laid off twice, it was very easy to lose confidence, and I initially fell into this trap of blaming myself. And I really struggled with this at first, because even though deep down rationally I knew that I wasn't laid off due to performance, a stark voice kept telling me that I must have done something wrong, especially I got laid off twice, and I wasn't good enough. And so the first few weeks after the layoffs, I remember were very stressful, and I remember avoiding human contact as much as possible, withdrawing into a corner and doing nothing but just job searching. And the greatest enemy back then was my own insecurity. Also, after getting rejection and after rejection, even after putting my best for the interviews, I felt so powerless and frustrated because it's both physically and emotionally draining when you go through these multiple rounds of 4 to 5 hours of grueling interviews only to get that generic message that from the company that they moved on with another candidate. Or even worse, they extend you a verbal offer only to put it on hold and leave you in a state of limbo with only a vague hope of a future offer that you never know will even come. Another challenge due to being physically outside the US is this huge time zone difference, because it is morning in the US when it is nighttime in Korea, which meant that most interviews would take place when close to midnight here in Korea, or sometimes as late as 3 to 4 a.m. or should I say early. And so I have to live like a night owl in order to even talk to people in the US. And I remember one week I had almost consecutive rounds of on-site interviews, and some interviews would end so late that I'll see sunrise and it'll be almost 6 a.m. and my body was so overworked and I got so sick that I had to lie on bed the whole following week. For me, the most mentally or emotionally challenging part of this job search process is not the actual interviews or endless hours of preparation. Of course, these are also very difficult and stressful, but what's even more so is the internal battle I have to fight every single day I wake up. The dark voice that reminds me of my powerlessness and that I'm still unemployed for a year, despite my best efforts, with nothing much to show. And this same insecurity creeps in whenever people would ask how I'm doing or inquire about my job search. Even though they come from good intentions, they'll sometimes trigger even more self-doubts that I'll have to fight against every night before I go to sleep. And there are also times when I'll just cry randomly while walking, or just talk randomly, or walk randomly for a while before realizing where I'm going. And yeah, after a year of searching, I realized that the job market is quite brutal. But yeah, I'm still here, still fighting. The past year of job searching has been one of the darkest moments in my life, but I'd like to see this challenge as an opportunity to grow and improve myself. One of my favorite motivational quotes by Winston Churchill is, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." And thanks to this opportunity, I've had the chance to explore what I really am passionate about and my interests. And apart from job searching, I've basically used this time to explore other interests like traveling, visiting friends and family, or even taking courses on topics that I've always wanted to learn more about, as well as working on personal projects to sharpen my machine learning data science skills. Looking back, I think this period has been the most uncertain and challenging in my life. And while I've had my own share of difficulties in the past, they were usually within certain guardrails, and I could count on others when I was lost. For example, my parents during childhood, or the institution or advisor during college and grad school. Now, my next step is entirely in my hands, and the direction I take is completely up to me. That being said, I'm very, very grateful for the unconditional support of those around me. More importantly, I see this as an opportunity to take full charge of my career and push the boundaries of my possibilities. If you guys found this video helpful or have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you.